Good morning. My name is Ellen Pitts, and welcome to the 16th Annual Savannah Book Festival. This year's festival is presented by the Philip E. and Nancy D. Beekman Foundation, David and Nancy Cintron, Robert Faircloth, the Courtney Knight Gaines Foundation, and the Gerald D. and Helen M. Stevens Foundation, with a special thanks to a grant from the Georgia Humanities. We are especially grateful to Judy and Gary Latzenheiser for sponsoring the Lutheran Church of the Ascension today. We'd also like to welcome our generous sponsors and our literati members today. It is through your support that we are able to make festival events this Saturday free to the public. 90% of our revenue comes from our donors and literati members, and we thank you very much. This year's festival is full of great events and authors, and the best way to make sure that you don't miss any of it is to download the Savannah Book Festival app on your phone. If you need more information about that, just look on the back of your program. Before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping notes. Joe Maddon and Tom Verducci will be signing festival purchase copies of their book in Telfair Square immediately following the presentation. If you're planning to stay for the next author, Alexandra Horowitz, please move forward at the end of the presentation so that we can, as the venue empties. Please take a moment now, if you don't mind, to make sure your cell phone is off. We also ask that you do not use flash photography. And due to its recent restoration, there is to be absolutely no eating or drinking in the sanctuary. On the back of your program, you will find a QR code for a survey. We would very much appreciate if you would take a moment to share your opinion. Your input will help us improve the festival and impact the funding of arts in this community. Later, as you exit, you will see volunteers with yellow buckets, as Judy mentioned. We do hope you will consider making a donation to the Savannah Book Festival. You will have the opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the talk. Just please raise your hand, and someone will come over with a mic and we just want everyone to be able to hear your question. Joe Maddon and Tom Verducci are with us today, courtesy of Hunter McLean. Tom Verducci is the lead baseball writer for Sports Illustrated and a lead analyst and reporter for MLB Network and Fox Sports. He is a 3-time National Sports Writer of the Year award winner, a 5-time Emmy Award winner, and a member of the National Sports Media Association Hall of Fame. Joe Maddon is a 3-time Manager of the Year award winner. Among his 19 years managing, most recently with the Los Angeles Angels, he led the Tampa Bay Rays to their first World Series and the Chicago Cubs to their first World Series title in 108 years. Please give a warm Savannah welcome to Tom Verducci and Joe Maddon.
Thank you so much for that. You read it exactly the way Joe wrote it out for you. So well done.
But aren't you supposed to say, let us pray after this? Look at this.
I want to thank everybody for being here today, first of all. First of all, to the city of Savannah. How cool is this city, Joe? We've had a blast being here.
Any realtors in here at all? Any realtors? I mean, I've always wanted to come. I've had an RV for many years. I just sold to Cousin Eddie last year, 45-foot Winnebago. But I know you have some like RV resorts around here. For so many years, I was going to come up here, and I failed to do so. But now I'm really, like last night walking around, we got lost.
Which is a good thing around here. We got to see a lot.
Couldn't find a Lucas Theater. We finally found it. But going back, and everybody measures or tells you where to go based on squares, right? And it was like 2 squares, 3 squares, whatever, which we found amusing. But my God, this is a beautiful, beautiful area. And I'm not kidding. I got to talk to somebody before I leave town.
Well, by being here, I know you people are some of my favorite people because you have what I call the reading gene, right? You love to read. And I think it's such an important quality because to me, by reading, it tells me you're curious. And by being curious, you're empathetic. And I bring that up because I think that has a lot to do with our book, the Book of Joe. In this world, I think we connect on a very human basis. And a lot of the book is about how technology, and especially in baseball, analytics have really changed the game. And actually the way the game is played, not just the evaluation tools in the game. And what we wanted to do is kind of say, time out, let's sort of think about rebalancing the sort of humanism and technology. And that's going on all around us, right? You probably have heard about Chat GPT, the latest thing that's out there, where you can ask it a question. You can have it write a term paper for you if you want. When we come to find out, I heard a professor from California say that he used it and just to kind of see how accurate it was, asked the question, how many bears have the Russians put into space? And it came back with an answer like the 28 bears they put in space. Very specifically, they went through these shots where they put bears up in space. Of course, it never happened, but it came across as fact, and people will accept that as fact because we're so trusting of technology. What does this have to do with baseball in our book? Well, Joe, I want you to talk about this because we talked about this a lot in the book. In the course of his managerial career, he saw baseball really change as a guy who was at the forefront of accepting a lot of the changes in analytics because it does tell us a lot. He saw it become, I'll say it, overused, where it was dictating strategy, not just saying, hey, I can find out if this player is a good player or not by looking at his numbers. So, Joe, in the course of your career, did you find it was more and more difficult to manage with gut, instinct, experience, whatever you want to call it?
I started in the early 80s. 1981, I was a California Angel scout, minor league manager, coach, etc. And Gene Mauch was the manager of the Angels at that time, who I revere, absolutely revere. So part of the concept of our book, too, is to compare and contrast managing in the 1980s compared to present day. And I'd write down the personalities. I mean, there's no analytical genius that's going to walk into Gene Mauch's office before a game and tell him how to handle his pitching staff that night. The guy would have been dead. I mean, seriously, there would have been a fight. Gene, you would never be permitted in that office again. How dare you? I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. I've been doing it my whole life. You just graduated from college. You're going to walk in here with numbers and tell me how to do my job. Pretty much that's what's going on. That's exactly what's going on today. And again, like Tommy intimated, not just in baseball, I just think in the world in general, we're getting so far away from the heartbeat and humanity, and we're relying even on AI to write term papers, whatever. I don't understand the real push or the excitement with where we're not permitting ourselves to be us, and we're going to turn over the process to numbers, math, machines, etc. That's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. Managers in baseball are no longer managers. They're middle managers. They're not there with their own wisdom, their experience, their sense of feel for what they've done or what they've learned. They're being told what to do mathematically. So I was a manager. I love being a manager. I love standing on the top step of that dugout and bringing to bear in that particular moment everything I've learned since 1976, pretty much right? And you get to this moment, it's like, the Gladwell stuff, Blink. I'm a big Blink guy. It's intuitive thinking. It's instinct in the moment. And when you really figure out what that means, because there was a time when I was like reticent. Am I just like pulling this out of my butt? I mean, why am I making these decisions? It's just like an accumulation of time that you've done something. It's your wisdom. It's your experience. It's that feel, that sense. Feel is the gift of experience. I believe that. So anyway, that's what we're talking about here. It's it's how math is overtaking everything, and I don't understand that. And as I'm saying that, listen, I'm into it. I want numbers. I want that information to morph into everything else that I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I cannot conclude just based on there's a lot of bias built into this also, you have to admit. Anybody that puts together a matrices, there's a lot of your own personal bias built into that equation. So they're not always right. Everybody looks or thinks as though those things are perfect, that they're perfect, they're infallible. Not true. But that's where we're being convinced that they are. And that's where the disconnect is for me as a manager. Talking baseball now. But I think it overflows into other areas. So this is where I'm coming from. The book, Compare and Contrast, the book trying to break down what's happening in the game today and why, and where it may be going in the future. But as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. I believe in this. I think I'm very clear about this. I believe I have a strong opinion. I have a good feel for this, and I really try to work void of bias, because bias and truth are becoming interchangeable terms, and I really want to see if I can separate myself. Last point, I was really impacted last year, a couple years ago, by Hemingway with when he had this writer's cramp. He would sit down and just try to attempt to write one true sentence. And I really try to guide myself, talking to the press, talking to you right now, talking to my grandchildren, whatever, just one true sentence. And if I tell you the truth, you might not like me for a week or 10 days, but if I lie to you, you're going to hate me forever. So this is the area I'm working within right now. This is my lane right now. And Tommy hears it all the time. I run stuff by him all the time. He's a wonderful sounding board for me because his ability to take a lot of information and cull it down and present it to you really well and accurately, to me, is very impressive.
Well, I think when you read the book, you'll find it appeals to a lot of different people. If you're a really hardcore baseball fan, there's some really cool anecdotes behind the scenes about what goes into decision-making by managers in the course of the game, whether it's through Joe Maddon, whether there's stories about the 2019 World Series with A.J. Hinch, Game 7 of that World Series, the way things can turn on a small, unseen event in the game that the manager himself has to react to in real time, the blink moments. There's also a lot in there about leadership and about changing cultures. We hear that phrase all the time, changing culture, especially in baseball. They talk about that. Joe's done that several times. He went to Tampa Bay when they hadn't won anything, come close to winning anything, got them thinking of how to be winners, brought the team to the World Series. The Chicago Cubs hadn't won a World Series in 108 years until he got there, changed that culture. So two really fast, very impactful turnaround stories, a lot about changing culture. And Joe, I really wanted to explore managing because I saw the game change. I knew people were questioning the manager. We love to second guess managers, right? It's one of the great traditions in the game. But I also knew the game had changed so that really somebody else was making that decision before the game. Somebody in the front office said, that starting pitcher is not going to pitch to the lineup the third time around. And so the manager takes him out of the game, and everybody questions the manager. But I knew, hey, wait a second, folks, the game has changed. It's not the same game. I wanted to explore that, but I also wanted to explore changing culture and leading people. How in this world today, in baseball especially with the money at stake, as a manager, do you get people to play hard for the good of the team? What was it? Eisenhower, he said his idea of leadership was getting people to do something for the betterment of the group that they might otherwise not do individually. In baseball, sometimes that means pushing that runner over to third base by hitting a ground ball the other way. You're out, but the guy moves over to third and is able to score on the next pitch. Those kind of things. So, Joe, I want you to talk about how you develop culture, because people go through this in their workplaces, right? There's a new hire, there's a new boss, things change. How do you ingrain a winning team-oriented culture when you take over a group that doesn't have that in its DNA?
Well, I actually learned that from Gene Mock. In 1982, 3, whatever that was, I'm running the Arizona Instructional League for the Angels. 84. I'm throwing BPM out in the cage, throwing batting practice, ball after ball. And Gene Mock, what a presence. I mean, like, if your backs are towards that door, right? If Gene walked in that door right now, you'd feel him. You'd know he was there. He was just one of those guys. The presence was so strong. He walked up to me, said, give me one of those. So I stopped throwing and walked over. Yes, Gene. And he said to me, you've created a great atmosphere around here. I said, thank you. And he just goes poof, and he walks away, and he's gone with this polyester, perfect hair, smoking a cigarette, whatever. Right out of a golf course, right out of Palm Springs at that time. But he made me think. I went home that and I said, what is he talking about? Because, you do things organically sometimes, especially at that age. You don't know what you're doing. You're just doing, and which is always probably the best way to do it. So I went home that night, and I thought, well, what's he talking about here? Because I want to be able to do this again next year and the year after that and the year after that. So how do I break this down? So I did. And from that one blurb from Gene, I discerned that what was happening was, we were building relationships. A lot of conversations, a lot of one-on-one meetings. And I'm not a meeting guy, but like when they walk in the door, you sit down, I'm going to tell you your strengths, your weaknesses, what we're going to do to help get you better here. And then I want you to tell me what you're going to do to help get better here. And we're going to work on that for 6 weeks. That's the kind of meeting that I like. So We start by building relationships through conversation. And out of that is probably the glue of everything, and that's trust. Trust has to run both ways. Everybody talks about it. It's a wonderful word. It absolutely means everything. I don't know that everybody truly understands or grasps it to the point whether you do understand how trust works both ways. And once you get that going, then you got something. Now we're starting to work. Now we're starting to build something here where we could hold on to it for a while. So after that, relationships, we had conversation. We like each other. We could talk. And then we start trusting one another. Well, this guy's all right. I don't always agree with him, but he's straightforward, whatever. And then here comes really important moment, the exchange of ideas. And when you're able to have the conversation, when you're able to start trusting one another, now you can exchange ideas openly, without blowback, without pushback. Because even if I disagree with you, I'm going to listen openly. We're going to discuss this, and in a perfect world, we're going to conclude. And then whoever was the better idea, or maybe a morphing of them, that's what we're going with. And that doesn't always happen. When you don't have the relationship built or trust, there's pushback. You're not going to want to agree with this person, even though you might like what you're hearing. You're going to push back. You're going to push back because you get that slow burn going on in your tummy. It's not my idea. It's his idea. I'm really not into it. And it happens. It's human nature. It happens. And then eventually, the real superstar of this whole thing is that constructive criticism flows. When you get to the point where you can be openly critical, not in a mean way, just openly critical of each other's ideas, now you're really you're creating the cement, you're galvanizing the glue, whatever, of this relationship to the point where you're creating culture. That's how I've described it. That's 1984, 1985. I come home, I'm just like, what am I? 1984, I'm 30 years old. 30 years old, and I'm coming home, I'm thinking all this stuff, and it's still with me till today. I wrote it down, and then so every year after that, when Instruction League or spring training showed up, I would intentionally attempt to bring these things forward and make it part of the day. And sure enough, there's sometimes it just, the flow's not there, maybe not the right ingredients personnel-wise, and it's not always going to stick in the manner that you'd like. But you have to have a method. You have to have a schematic. You have to have something, a template that helps you, because you want to rely organically, and I do. I really do. I'm a feel guy. I rely on my instincts. But to get things rolling, sometimes you have to have this little cheat sheet of your own that you can follow. And then you start moving in the right direction. And then, man, when it garners momentum, this is pretty fun. The Rays in 2008, the Cubs in 15-16. I thought we were going to have it going on with the Angels and never got an opportunity to finish that off. But every place I've been, what I'm describing to you is exactly how I proceeded. And it was with the help of Gene saying that to me one time in 1984.
Very cool. We want to take your questions, and we'll get to that. One more thing I wanted to add. The book also has, I call them kind of Bull Durham stories. Baseball is full of stories and characters, and there's many in this book. He's had an incredible, not just major league career, but minor league career as well. Quick story for you. His big break came by playing in a college league in Boulder, Colorado. He went there as, I don't know, were you a fourth string catcher on the team? And sixth string catcher, whoever heard of such a thing, actually gets himself a chance to play, has like 3 hits. He's in the lineup the next day. He's on a hot streak, stays in the lineup. He's playing every day. He's at altitude in Boulder, Colorado for the first time in his life. He's getting worn out. He's not used to playing up there at altitude every single day. He's catching. It's a grind. It's hot. So what he does is him and a buddy, since the weather's perfect all the time in the summer there, they flood the field, right? The sprinklers turn them on, or hoses out there, floods the field. He's so happy. He's like, we're not playing tonight because the field is ruined. I have a day off finally. Tell him what happened next.
Yeah, it's all true. Me and Stanley Jakubowski, Stashu, and then Rod Boxberger, his son Brad still pitches. We're in charge of University of Colorado baseball field. Baldy Muschietti, the impresario, is the owner of the Boulder Collegians. Italian guy. Baldy grew up in Cannon City, I think it is, down in southern Colorado. Coal trucks. Got one coal truck, built it into this empire that he probably owned half of Boulder by the time I got there. Love Baldy. No longer here, but love Baldy. And Baldy was just tough, man. He was just a tough old Italian, and that's what I grew up around back home. And so anyway, there's relentless. And we did. We had 6 catchers. I got there 1 of 6. All these dudes are from Southern California, Oklahoma, Texas. I'm from Lafayette College. All of a sudden, I started playing good. And the fact that I'm half Italian really appealed to Baldy also. So I'm playing all the time, and I'm tired. I'm tired, man. It's tired. It's to do that in that heat in that summer. So I said, Stashu, we're flooding the fields. So the night before you put on those little, and you leave them on all night. So I show up there the next day, and the infield's absolutely drenched. There's like little lakes all over first base to second, short to third. It was awesome. And then Baldy, you'll never know what happened. The sprinklers got stuck. The field's flooded. We're not going to be able to play tonight. Well, I don't know. Baldy talked like, I don't know. We're going to do. Baldy calls in helicopters, right? He calls in helicopters. He gets helicopters in to blow all this stuff off the field. And then me and Stashu had to go out and get gasoline, rake the field. You rake the field, and then you put gasoline on it. You just throw a match on it, and you burn the dirt. So by 5 o'clock, the field was in good enough shape. I had to fix the field, flood the field, fix the field, and then catch 9 innings that night because Baldy was not going to be tonight. Baldy, I worked for the coolest, toughest dude in the history of Colorado, but I learned my lesson in that particular day.
Learned it well, by the way. It was a few years later. He's scouting for the Angels, and he has to go see a pitcher by the name of Danny Jackson, who's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. He goes all the way to Grand Junction, Colorado to see him, and it's pouring rain, and the field is ruined. This is the last chance before the draft to see this kid pitch, and now Joe can't file a report. Can't see him pitch. There's only one thing he can do to see him pitch. Burn the field.
I knew the coach. And Rick Zimmerman knew Baldy from Boulder. I said, man, I got it. My boss was Larry Himes. He used to be the GM of the Cubs and then the White Sox, taskmaster. This guy would eat me alive. I left instruction league, flew up there just for this event. Pours. I said, Rick, I got to see this guy. So same thing. I went out. I bought a bunch of gas, brought it back. I expensed it. We're cool. I expensed it, raked it, burnt it, and I saw Danny Jackson pitch, even though I knew we had 0 chance of getting him. Unless you were drafting number one, you don't get to draft Danny Jackson that year. But sense of duty, I had to write a report, so I had to burn the field.
I always think about
all dirt, too. All dirt field.
I just think about somebody in the accounting department when you turn in that expense report for about 75 gallons of gasoline.
Right. I got regular, not high test, though. It's all right.
Hey, we are more than happy to take whatever questions you have here. I mean, that's the reason why we're here, to listen to you. Yes, we'll start right here. You had your hand up first.
The day of what? Oh, my dad.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, why do catchers make such good managers or backup catchers? You see well, first of all, you catch all the pitchers every day. Excuse me. All the bullpens that they throw, you're the guy that has to catch these guys, and your pitchers love you. It's like the backup quarterback. It's like the guy that sees everything. He's running the scout team all the time. Everybody appreciates the work ethic, whatever. But I got to know everybody, and then the manager relies on you, and especially in the minor leagues, because you're almost like the bullpen coach. Tommy doesn't look that good today, or Tommy's really on top of his game today, whatever it might be. So you're able to spread the word with him. And last point, think about it. A catcher watches the whole game. We're sitting this way looking at the game. Everybody else is looking in. You see defense, you see movement, you see strategy, with pitchers, throw over, pitch out. There's so many different things that you see that nobody else sees. And I think that's a really, really large part of that is this way the field faces. And the fact that you're involved in everything, if you choose to be. Now, there's a lot of guys that be a little, crybabies about it, sour about it, I want to play more. And I've been around those guys. It's really boring. I mean, pitchers do not like catchers that want to go hit instead of catch them. And your number one reason to be there is to catch them. And when your pitching staff knows you're totally invested in them, you're gold on that team. You're absolutely gold. And then the windows, when as a kid growing up, man, we had windows everywhere. And my dad would play catch with me all the time. My dad was the best. My dad was a plumber, somewhat athletic, not a big man. Baseball season, we played catch. Football season, he put a tire up for me. In basketball season, which is inside, they put a hoop up in the shop, in the plumbing shop. We'd play every night. But when in the summertime, it was glorious. You'd go out there and be playing catch, and you boom, all of a sudden I pick it up, and wham, I threw it really well, right through a window, shattered. Uncle Mitch got really upset. That's my dad's youngest brother, Vince. Vince is all over me, kind of upset. I can't use the right words in here, but Uncle Mitch did not like it. And when he starts complaining, all my dad can say to him was, well, look at his arm. That happened a lot. We lived right across the street from the high school. We played there all the time. Janitors are kicking you out. The stuff you'd love to see kids doing today, right? I mean, just this ability to play among each other without supervision, but again, without the threats that we feel today. But that's part of the makeup of us today that bothers me, that children need so much supervision, have to be told what to do all the time, have to be supervised, as opposed to we didn't. And I think there's a lot of individuality, there's a lot of problem solving, there's a lot of stuff that occurred naturally for us. Nobody thought about it at the time, but it was there. It was there, problem solving. You get a little tiff down at the playground, you got to fight for yourself a little bit here, man. I mean, all that stuff matters. And but Uncle Mitch didn't appreciate it. He did.
I should have mentioned too, by the way, we do have a microphone, so if you could wait for a microphone so everyone can hear your question. Okay?
Yes.
Right over here.
Hi there.
Thanks, sir.
I grew up watching Tom Seaver match up against Bob Gibson. They both go 9 innings, 2-hour game, 2-1, 3-2 maybe. If something has happened to the game now where if a pitcher goes 5 innings, you feel happy. It's a home run strikeout game. Yep. And then the pitcher who throws 100 is out for a year with Tommy John surgery. It seems to me that the owners and the players union should get together and figure out how to bring back some of that magisterial toughness that existed in this great, amazing game.
The marquee matchup, right? I mean, you always looked at the probables that day, who's pitching for each team. Whether it was Gibson and Seaver, it could have been Bob Beal versus Bob Perky back in the day. It could have been all these different guys. The problem is, it's all analytically based. I'm here to tell you, that's not an exaggeration. The third time through the batting order, statistically, the number normally spikes the third time through. And what they're teaching these young guys to do is try to throw the ball as hard as they can at the top of the strike zone. We don't want the ball in play. We want strikeouts. We want to eliminate the potential for a hit, actually, too. From the offensive side, I want you to lift it, lift, try to hit home run. Don't you dare make it out on the bases. If you get thrown out on the bases, you're going to hear from somebody. Yes, please take your walks. I mean, that's the game that's being taught right now. There's really a lack of fundamentals being taught. Zero fundamentals. I'm here to tell you, man, when I got to the Angels in 2020, I was told for the previous 3 or 4 years, bunting and base running was not even taught in the minor leagues. And that is actually appalling. It's such an interesting part of the game and a big part of the game. So when it comes down to pitchers specifically, it's turned into a 100-pitch exercise. Everybody's worried about people getting hurt. But a lot of it's rooted in the fact that they want the next guy in there with the fresh arm that the hitter hasn't seen yet, and then we're going to give you another one, and then another one. But go talk to Scherzer. Go talk to Verlander. Go talk to Kershaw. Go talk to the guys that are kind of like the linchpins to the past. My line is, and this is really upsets me, is that we're getting in the way of greatness. We are legislating against greatness by imposing limits. Talking in a baseball sense, but again, I'm probably in your own worlds. You're part of probably an organization maybe that imposes limits. Part of it might be salary wise. If you only become so good, they don't have to pay you so much more. There's all kind of interconnectivity with this that really bothers me. I am not of that ilk that you're talking about. There are certain guys I've had, absolutely, third time through, I'm on the top step. One knock, they're out. I get it. There's guys like that. But then there's other guys that get better. And then furthermore, the deeper your pitcher goes into the game, the stronger your bullpen becomes or stays. And of course, there's all this interconnectivity that nobody wants to talk about. And it's a very, the math to me is really, it's taken the place of decision making. And it permits you to make decisions without any kind of recourse or concern of being criticized, because the numbers told you to do it. There's no more human involvement. So if you rely on math to tell you what to do, then you can point to math when it doesn't work out. But if you rely on you to make a decision and it doesn't work out, then you are going to draw the ire of the criticism. I'll take it. I'll take that every time. But I'm telling you, a lot of young executives today rely on math because they do not want to face the consequences of a wrong decision, whereas they could just refer to the math as being the reason why I did something. If you wait long enough, the large sample size will come back. I'm into trends, man. I believe in trends. For years, I was trying to get my matrices built off of trends. Tell me between August 10th and August 20th, what do you predict right now, Nostradamus? What are you predicting right now? I mean, this large sample size to me is really about acquisitions. If I want a shortstop, these two guys are shortstops, and this is November, 15th, we're in the off season, and I want to break it down. I want as much intel as I could possibly get. That's when the large sample size matters. If you guys are investing my money, absolutely, I want you to use the large sample size. But trends, what's happening on August 15th, where this hitter's he's been terrible, or this pitcher maybe has a little bit of a sore arm, he's not the same cat. Guy's got a personal problem in his life, he's just not showing up every day. Matters. This all matters. So anyway, long answer, but it's math permits decision making with very little recourse when it's not correct.
Real quickly, just wanted to add that the manager today has so many more good options behind the version of Seaver and Gibson than back in the day. It's amazing what they're doing with pitching.
Yeah.
We grew up thinking the guys who threw the ball hard were blessed with great arms. It's still true, but they've figured out ways to improve velocity. Velocity is now a teachable skill. What they're doing in pitching labs is amazing on the amateur level I'm talking about. So that's why the manager now has a much bigger universe of options of really hard throwers where he's got good options, not just one closer, multiple guys he can bring in behind. And if you're wondering, because the velocity keeps going up, the top end, we can't throw much harder than guys are throwing now. They've actually taken cadavers and pushed the shoulder joint to its absolute limit. And we're pretty much there now. That's as much force as you will find. It's like the speed of a helicopter, what's going on inside the shoulder as the arm comes around. Your arm would literally fall apart if you threw harder than 105, 106. But what's happening is more and more and more pitchers are bumping up against that ceiling. So the manager says, you know what? I like my starting pitcher, but I got 6 guys down there throwing 95 to 100. So I can afford to make those decisions. So some of the advances that are happening really prefer or incentivize the run prevention side of the game. Pitching, you're dealing with things you can control. The hitter has so many variable elements in terms of what pitch it is, where it's going, the speed of it, the arc of it. So most of these things are helping the run prevention side of the game. Yes, right here. I'm sorry.
Yes, as a lifelong Cub fan, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah. There's a few people like you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Can you tell us about the rain delay in the final game?
He wants to know about the rain delay in Game 7. Wow, I mean, what a night, right? So what happened, of course, Rajah Davis hits the home run, And then eventually we get through the ninth inning, send Aroldis back out there. But I talk about this too. People don't understand, realize that Miguel Montero was the catcher in that ninth inning. Contreras started. David Ross picked him up. Miggy comes in. Miggy was really liked Aroldis' breaking ball, which has become more popular since he's been a Yankee too. So he gets him through that ninth inning with the breaking ball. He really does. So we survive and get to the 10th. And then, of course, here comes the rain delay. What happened was I'm leaving the dugout in Cleveland. You walk out the dugout over there. There's steps, and then you go across the hallway and up to the locker room. But on the right, down below, is the weight room, visitors' weight training room. So I'm walking down, and all of a sudden the guys are peeling off into that weight room. Okay. Jason called a meeting. Somebody said that Jason Hayward called the meeting. I thought that's good. I walked upstairs. Was with Jed Hoyer. We were looking at the iPad, the weather, and all that kind of stuff. And actually, Joe West told me, and I don't know why he said it, but he said it. It'll be 17 minutes. 17 minutes.
It was exactly 17 minutes.
Of course, he had a direct line to the guy, the big guy, and he said 17. But I think he was right. So anyway, they go in there, they peel off, they do their thing. I talk to Jed, and we're trying to reassure each other. Go back out. I go in the dugout. You walk back up. You walk out. The boys are coming out. And I swear, it was almost like the game was just ready to begin the first inning. Their energy was that high. What Jason had done, pretty much reminding them that it's their time. It's our time. This is our time. We can do this. We've been working at this year and even last year. We know we're capable of this. This is our time. And then Schwartz base hit. Almora pinch run. Fly ball, sacrifice. Riz walked. Here comes Rizzo, double down the corner. And then again, Montero, base hit to left. Base hit to left. That was the 8th run, which eventually was the winning run. So I'm not a big believer in team meetings. Talk about one in the book that I had in Kansas City. But the fact that a peer calls you and a peer says, hey, this is our time, let's go. We've been working towards this. This is nothing. It resonates so much greater than if I had said it. So I was so pleased. Jason and I are still in contact. He was on our show, the Book of Joe podcast. He did a great job. I just got invited to his baby's first birthday party coming up. Anyway, but that's what happened, and that was so powerful.
So I was working for Fox, and I'm on the Cubs side of the field, right next to the dugout. It starts to rain. Joe West says, bring the tarp out. I don't want to get my suit wet, so I go into the Cubs dugout. The dugout at that point had completely emptied except for Aroldis Chapman, the guy who had given up the home run to tie the game. He was in near tears. Now, he is built like a brick house. He's got to be 6'4", 240 pounds, one of the toughest guys you'll see. He was an emotional wreck. In fact, I'll never forget him because I heard someone say, hey, Aroldis, we have a meeting back here. I didn't know what it was about, but he gets up, almost staggering. As he walks by me, he just reaches out to hold on to me. He's just so visibly, physically shaken. I'll never forget how much giving up that home run had really hurt him. It's amazing he did come back and somehow got through the next inning and kept the game tied. And Joe's absolutely right. I thought at that point, there was no way the Cubs were winning the game. They were dead. When they came back out 17 minutes later, it sounded like a high school football team running on the field on a Friday night. The energy was palpable. You could feel it. And to our Cubs fan here, lifelong Cubs fan, I can tell you a lot of people said for a lot of years that it would take an act of God for the Cubs to win the World Series. That was it. They're not winning it without that act of God. Yes, over here.
I admit I don't follow baseball. I like the game, but I don't follow it. But I think I read recently that the the bases have increased in size, and that the reference was made that it would change not only the game is so mathematically precise that would really change the way the players play and the stats, and also make historical reference to achievement very difficult. So that was one question I had, just a comment, what your comment or thoughts were that. And also with reference to the game being played based, or decisions being made based on stats. Is that more the owners demanding the managers to do that, or do the managers are starting to prefer that because it's probably easier than following their gut and making mistakes kind of thing.
Let me take the rules question
Go ahead,
first,
go ahead, go ahead.
because I'm totally about these things. The bases you talked about, yes, they're 3 inches bigger. So if you were a kid like I did, sometimes you just make up your own field and use the pizza box for a base. That's what it looks like. But the idea is there's, I think, 4.5 inches less between first and second and third, which should encourage players to steal bases more. And in the analytical movement, they were very much anti-stolen base because everybody was waiting for a home run to hit. So it wasn't advantageous to steal 90 feet. And if you got thrown out, you took a run off the board in case that next guy hit a home run. So it really wasn't encouraged, which meant the game really wasn't very athletic. You didn't need people who could run. Now, with the way the rule changes are, the base is encouraging stolen bases. You cannot have a shift now. You can't load up one side of the field with a bunch of defenders. So that means, as a defender now, you need to cover more ground. You need to be more athletic. And what's happening here is baseball finally realized we need to take the game back and let it be decided by the players and not by the people who are running the algorithms. And I think over time you will see baseball not only get faster for you as a fan, that's great, but the style of game will go back to something that is more athletic, more risk-taking, because that's what basically baseball is about, figuring out the probabilities of eliminating risk. That's what analytics does. We need more risk-taking back in the game, and that stolen base thing, I'm not sure how big of an impact it will have. It'll have some, but hopefully over time, as the more athletic player is valued more, you'll have more people stealing bases.
Yeah, and the stuff about the information or the numbers, it's a safety net for decision making. Think about it. It's a safety net for decision making. Because if you're going to just, because everybody's doing it. I mean, everybody's car is black, white, or silver, right? Everything looks the same anymore. Everybody wants everything to look the same. I listen to music, it all sounds the same. Back in the day, if Santana came on, or the Doobie Brothers came on, or Zeppelin came on, or whatever, I knew it from the first note who it was. Right now, I don't know. We are so pushing towards everything being and looking the same. I don't get it. I really don't get it. So think of it. All the math, all the information is a safety net for decision making. And to your point, then you could turn it over to people with less experience, because they do want it. I actually talked to a manager a year or so ago. I'm not going to tell you who it was. Great guy. But I was lamenting this particular point and how I would love that analysts would not be permitted in the clubhouse, say after 3 o'clock or after 2 o'clock. Bring me your stuff, show it to me. I'm going to say thank you, then leave. And he said, I don't know what I would do if that was the case, where these guys are not permitted to come down there and fill me up right till the game begins, and then give me kind of like a little cheat sheet for the game. So that was my conclusion. I was trying to say it earlier, but I couldn't quite get a thought of it when we were sitting here. The safety net for decision making is math, and it takes out the human element. And because of that, I will take a lesser experienced person without the same wisdom, feel, whatever you want to call it. And actually, I don't want him to have that. I want him to be kind of a blank slate so that he will more blindly follow what I tell him to do. I think leadership has been reduced to control. I mean, there was a time that leadership actually was about empowerment and being there for your group, interfering when it's necessary, otherwise giving assignments. And actually, this is your assignment, go. Your assignment, go. Your assignment, go. And then we'll report back and see what you got. But the way it's being handled now, it's detracting from it's causing you to not want to think for yourself or think outside the box or push yourself creatively in a creative manner, because it's not being sought. And I hope it doesn't sound like sour grapes at all. This is my observation, what's been going on. And quite frankly, it's probably why I'm not managing right now, because I've been voicing my opinion. And I have to say this, I want to manage again. Somebody may ask that. I do. But I want to manage with the right method, being a combination of mathematics, analytics, good old-fashioned baseball fundamentals. So you got old school versus new school, And a good friend of mine, Todd Green, who's actually from Georgia, played for the Yankees, caught President Bush the day threw out the first pitch after 9/11. Greeny calls it being in school. I love that. It's not old school. It's not new school. I want to be in school. And I think when you do that, you're taking everything at your disposal. Why wouldn't you? Take every piece of information at your disposal, and then attempting to create or find the right solution. But it's not being sought right now.
Well said. Oh, we can go on all day, but time for one more question all the way in the back.
Hey, you guys are great. It's completely amazing. I love what you did with the Cubs, what you did with Tampa Bay. And when I hear you talking about culture, every coach out there, every team out there is all about culture. What did you do that was so successful? It's just amazing.
Yeah, I was trying to describe it earlier. Again, it's you can't be afraid of you'd never be afraid of making a mistake. Number one. I did some crazy stuff. I mean, even like down to like theme road trips, right? Dressing up. Just dressing. I mean, I had years ago, there was Ed Hardy. Ed Hardy was a popular new t-shirt, right? Kids are wearing it all over the place. Kind of bling bling kind of stuff on the shirt. I liked them. But one of my best moments ever as a major league manager is on a flight. I know where we're going, but I'm sitting there with my Ed Hardy on, and right next to me right there is Don Zimmer with full Buddha sticking out with his Ed Hardy t-shirt. I knew I had arrived at that point because Zim was a free spirit. Zim and I got along great. He'd come in and sit with me the next day after a game, bring a couple Coney Island hot dogs. When we're at home, sit there, and he'd just smirk, and we would talk about some of the things we did the day before, and he loved it. He loved it. Getting outside the box. You hear that all the time. Get out of your comfort zone. If you're living in your comfort zone, I promise you, great things aren't going to happen. They just aren't. It's going to be milk toast. It's going to be so far. It's going to be so good, but it's never going to be where you want to arrive at. The Cubs, 16, had the entire Columbus Zoo in left field. Pink Flamingo, Warren, love. I'm a Pink Flamingo-ist. Love. Warren was there. Sloths were there. Snow leopards were there. Cheetah was there. Then so were the players' wives, and the players' kids in left field. You want to build culture? Do things like that. But you can't be afraid of, what if you lose tonight? It's because we have this, I hate that kind of thinking. This kind of, if things don't work out well, whatever you did that day was wrong. Come on. I mean, there's so many people that and especially in sports, that deal, like for me, no batting practice day after a night game. Ridiculous. Get your rest, come a little bit later, make sure you get a good breakfast, go down the cage, get loose, go out there with a fresh mind and body. But there's people that think if you do that and don't win, it's because you didn't take batting practice. Absurd method of thinking. It's really prehistoric methods that really bother me. So once you've developed and listen, I went wrong my last year with the Cubs too. I kind of backed off on some of the crazy stuff because I was accused of not identifying with millennials at that time. And I guess we could all take, and if that's the case, I should have been happy about it, right? It's just, then you back away from your normal methods, right? You walk away from your truth. Never walk away from your truth, man. And I tell you, what identifies it is that when you do something and then it's out there, you're going to do it, that you feel really uncomfortable, man. Like, wow, why did I do this? It's an uncomfortable feeling. Why did I even choose this crazy route? And if you're feeling that, you're on the right track. As I knew every time I did some of these things, it's uncomfortable, man, because popular opinion's definitely not with you. But the moment it works, corny becomes cool, and then all of a sudden you got something. So don't be afraid to take chances, man.
Now you can see why I consider him a cross between Yogi Berra and Phil Jackson. The most interesting man in baseball. I think you should do a beer commercial.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, Joe Maddon. Thank you, Tom Verducci. That was wonderful. They will be in Telfair Square shortly after this to sign books that have been purchased through the festival. If anybody is staying for the next author, please move forward. And when you're on your way out, please find those people with yellow buckets and be generous. Thank you.